Since then, ovaj put malo drugačiji program, imamo posebno gosta Šila Prabhupada učenika Arčit Prabhu.
Since then, just as the number of devotees here in the Croatian Naša has increased, similarly, the number of devotees all around the world have increased. So part of my seva to my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada is to travel as widely and help to spread whatever I've learned from him. And that's all of our responsibility, not just those who were initiated by Srila Prabhupada, but everyone who comes in contact with Krishna consciousness should, after some time, feel the urge to spread those, whatever you're attracted by. Prabhupada said that several times. Whatever attracts you to Krishna consciousness, you should be eager to share with others. So in my case, I was first attracted by the philosophy. So I like to share the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. In some other cases, it may be the prasadam. So you should be eager to invite others to come and experience what you're experiencing. And in some other cases, it may be the deities. Sometimes, even before someone knows anything about Krishna consciousness, they are attracted by the beauty of the deities in the temple or Lord Jagannath at a Rath Yatra festival. So whatever attracts you to Krishna consciousness, whether it's prasadam, or the philosophy, or the beautiful deities, or chanting. Some people are immediately attracted by the chanting. So you should be always eager to share with others. Especially in your case, you're living in an open society. As far as I know, Croatia is still a very open country. You can practice any religion you want. You can wear anything you want. You can go anywhere you want. So there are no restrictions. As in the beginning of Krishna consciousness movement in the West, there were heavy restrictions. I was relating to the devotees last night that devotees would get arrested just for going on and chanting in the streets. And Prabhupada said, don't stop, just keep going out. They'll get tired of arresting you. And that's exactly what happened. They got tired of arresting the devotees. And Prabhupada also advised that if you're put in jail, just keep chanting. There was once a book distribution party traveling in the south of the United States on a Sunday. Small town in the south. This is like mid-70s. Not many people in the south had even heard about Krishna consciousness, what to speak of actually seeing devotees. So they got arrested for distributing books on a Sunday in a small town in the south. They were thrown in jail. So the leader of the party said, Prabhus, it was a bunch of brahmacharis. Prabhus, what do we normally do on Sunday? We have a Sunday feast. So let's make a Sunday feast. They're in jail. They have nothing, but they're pretending to peel the crumpir and cut up the satarash. They made a feast in jail, imaginary feast, cooking and making the pakoras and offering. And finally, the person was maintaining the jail on Sundays, thought they were all crazy. Said, just get out of here. Don't ever come back to this town. So wherever we are, we should do what we know we should do, which is chant, dance, prepare prasadam, distribute prasadam, wherever we are. And even if there's some restriction, like I've been in Belarus, and in Belarus, in Minsk, the capital, the devotees there are only allowed to chant in one marketplace. There's one outdoor market, and so on the weekends, they can go there and chant. No other part, as far as I know, no other place in Belarus, what to speak of, no place in the capital, Minsk, just that one market. So if that's all we're allowed to do, fine. But here in Croatia, you are not restricted. You're not restricted. So don't be shy to share whatever you like about Krishna consciousness with family members, co-workers, the public at large. This is not just something that Srila Prabhupada initiated, but this is Lord Chaitanya's movement. Lord Chaitanya's movement is Nagar Kirtan, taking the chanting. We enjoy chanting together, so take that enjoyment to the street and attract others to come and join. Increase the devotee family. Ultimately, we're all family, and we're going to discuss that tonight, because sometimes people say, well, you know, you people are nice, but I don't like organized religion. They like organized city management, they like organized country government, they like organized shopping in the shopping mall, everything organized, but not religion. That shouldn't be organized. What they're actually saying is, we don't like disorganized religion. That's what they're actually saying. And the first sign of disorganization is when the practitioners don't know what is the goal of that religion that they're practicing. And you can ask them, whether they're Orthodox this or Catholic or whatever, ask them, what is the goal of your religious or spiritual practice? Do you actually know? What it is you're practicing? What is your goal? And if they say, well, the goal is to go to heaven, or whatever they say, what is the procedure for achieving that goal? If you can't get clear answers, that's exactly what people don't like. They don't like disorganized religion. They say they don't like organized religion, but it's actually disorganized religion they don't like. Because that's a disorganized anything, company. If you have a business company and somebody walks through the door and asks, what's the goal of your company? And you don't know, you're an employee there or you're the owner and you don't know, then you're disorganized. So it's the same thing when it comes to religion or spirituality. One has to know what is the goal and how to achieve it. So when we know what is the goal and how to achieve it, then we can share easily. If you don't know, then you have to try all means to convince others, or you just neglect that part of it. No, so we don't do either. We don't try to force anybody. We share what we like, which is very easy. Again, if you like prasadam and you know prasadam is being distributed at Bhakti Center on a Sunday or Saturday or any day, then you can bring somebody there. If you like the philosophy and they've been codified into books, you can easily share those books with others. So we always want to be organized. We want to be organized. So the first sign that we're organized is that we know what we're trying to achieve. This is called Sambandha Gyan. To know who I am, who is God. First of all, is there a God? You have to start out with that, at least that much faith that there is a supreme being. And then there's a process for reawakening my relationship with that supreme person. And it should be something that is scientific in that it can be repeated. It's not that just some realization that I had and I can't share with others. No, it has to be some repeatable scientific experiment that anybody can do. Anyone can do. So tonight, I selected a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, but first let us chant Jaya Radha Madhava. I always say that I have come to the realization that this is the most beautiful love song ever written by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. It describes Radha, Krishna, and their activities in the spiritual world. Somebody has cartoons? Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Gopi Janavala Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. 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 Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol. Sorry. So as I said, I selected one verse from the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita to speak on tonight. If you have copies of the Gita, you can follow along. Otherwise, just try to hear. Okay, let's see. Let's go to chapter 5. And I just decided after walking in and feeling your energy, I decided this would be a good verse to speak on. So I don't have it on my computer yet. Let me call it up here. Chapter 5, text number 18, a verse that most of you probably know. Okay. So do you have some Gitas to pass around? If not, try to hear. So in this chapter, it's entitled Karma Yoga Action in Krishna Consciousness. Karma Yoga means we're not yet at the stage of pure devotion where we're doing everything for Krishna satisfaction. We are working in the world, but we have become attracted to the process of Krishna consciousness, so we want to at least give some of that fruit of our work to Krishna. That's Karma Yoga Action in Krishna Consciousness. And this, it's a progression, as you know, from Shraddha to Prema is a progression, not that everybody comes through the door of pure devotee. Although in the beginning, many of us thought that, within 6 months, a year maximum, I'll be a pure devotee. Not so easy. We've been rotting in this material world for countless lifetimes. Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Anadi Karama Pale. That means before the beginning of the creation. This current creation that we're in, Lord Brahma is about in his 51st year, and he lives for more than 300 trillion, 411 million years. So just calculate how long, 51 years, and we were here before that. So now we're attracted to this process of Krishna consciousness, so we should take it seriously. It's like anything else in life. If you want the best result from your time and energy, best return on your investment of time and energy, then you have to take it seriously. Whether you're a sportsman or a sportswoman or a businessman, businesswoman, or a politician, whatever you are, if you want the best return for your time and energy invested, you have to take it seriously. It's not just going to happen spontaneously. First of all, the desire has to be there, then the action to fulfill that desire has to be there. And on any path you choose, there are going to be so many obstacles. So you have to be always ready to try to overcome those obstacles. So as I said, in the beginning, if we're actually organized, we have to know who we are, who is the Supreme, and what is the recommended path for approaching the Supreme. We are on the path of Bhakti Yoga, but Bhakti means the transaction between Bhakta and Bhagavan. So Bhagavan is Krishna. Bhagavan is Krishna. We cannot become Bhagavan. This is our problem why we stay here, because we keep thinking that there is some scheme or some way by which we can become Bhagavan, the Supreme, the center of attraction and attention for everybody. That's what the Supreme means. The cynosure means that object or personality that belongs in the center of everybody's attention and attraction. So that's Krishna. We can't be Krishna. We can't be Radharani either. Sometimes we think that, okay, I've taken to the process of devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, I must be a gopi. I can't be a cow or a tree or something like that. I must be a gopi. And if I'm going to be the gopi, then I should be the best gopi. But that position is already taken. Actually, every one of us has an eternal position that we have forgotten. And to reawaken, when we reawaken our love for Krishna, that different and perfect. So if you've read Brihad Bhagavatamrita, you will find that this has been discussed there, that whether you're in Vaikuntha or in Goloka, wherever you are in the spiritual world, you think that your particular relationship with that particular form of Godhead is perfect. It's not that you're hankering, I'm a cow in Vrindavan, but I'm hankering to be a gopi or no. Actually, the gopis are envious of Krishna's flute. You see Krishna standing there always with his flute. If you forget to give Krishna his flute, it looks like something's missing. Krishna and that flute are inseparable. Whereas the gopis, they say we're always hankering to, we're dreaming of tasting the nectar of Krishna's lips, but that flute is at Krishna's lips all the time. So everyone in the spiritual world is perfectly situated, whether you're a flute or a tree or a cow or a cowherd boy or a gopi or Mother Yashoda. Every relationship is perfect. It's not that somebody who's in one position is hankering to be in another position. So we should understand that clearly, because sometimes people, some neophyte devotees are thinking that you must be a gopi, can't be anything else, but that's not true. In our line, our Sampradaya, Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya, we stress Radha Krishna worship. But Radha Krishna worship includes everything that you see. The flute, the clothing, the flowers, the boga, everything is there. And everything is perfectly situated. But when we're starting out in this path of bhakti, again, bhakti means the transaction between bhakta, all of us, bhaktas, and Bhagavan. And that relationship, that transaction between bhakta and Bhagavan is called bhakti. Nowadays, the word is used loosely. All kinds of weird groups are talking about bhakti, bhakti fest and bhakti this and bhakti that. They have no clue what is real bhakti. They're just using it as a marketing term to attract people. But no, real bhakti means that transaction between bhakta and Bhagavan. And that transaction is always enacted under supervision. Again, in the material world, because we've been burned so many times following so many false authorities, we don't like authority. Everybody wants to be independent, to do their own thing. But in the spiritual world, even, there's authority. There's authority. Krishna is the supreme authority, and then there's Krishna's inner circle and like that. But everybody's happy. It's not by that because I'm in a group of gopis that are being told what to do. Go and pick such and such flowers to come back and make such and such garland for Krishna. I'm extremely happy. The flower is happy to be placed in a garland, to be placed on Krishna. Everybody's happy in their position. And nobody's thinking that, why should I just be an assistant to the gopis, a manjari? Why should be one of the No. Everybody's happy. There are 8 principal gopis, and then it expands to 108, and then that just keeps expanding, but everybody's happy. But in the beginning, when we were starting the process of bhakti, our relationship with Bhagavan, there are certain symptoms that we should exhibit. And that's why I selected this verse. This verse is very important. Chapter 5, number 18, where Krishna says to Arjuna, is this a wireless? Yeah, I prefer to hold the mic than have it on a stand. This way I can turn it away. So Krishna says, Vidyavanaya sampane brahmane gavi hasani shani chaiva shapakecha pandita samadarshinaha. So we'll skip the synonyms and go straight to Srila Prabhupada's translation. The humble sage, by virtue of true knowledge, sees with equal vision a learned and gentle brahmana, a cow, an elephant, a dog, and a dog eater, outcast. So very important purport. We'll read that and then discuss. A Krishna conscious person does not make any distinction between species or castes. Let that sink in. If we're actually Krishna conscious, we shouldn't make those distinctions. It doesn't mean that we're blind and we don't see that here's a dog, here's a cat, so we call a matska, we call something else. No, we see a dog, we see a cat, we see all the individual persons. But internally, we understand that wherever there's life, there is a soul, an eternal spark of the Supreme, Krishna. And so we should, as far as possible, treat that soul, no matter what body they're in, as we would like to be treated ourselves. That's what it means. The Brahmana and the outcast may be different from the social point of view, or a dog, a cow, or an elephant may be different from the point of view of species. But these differences of body are meaningless from the viewpoint of a learned transcendentalist. So although we see the difference between an elephant, a tiger, a dog, a cat, a human being, we are not bewildered. On the other hand, we're not so bewildered that we go to the local Zagreb zoo, I'm sure there's a zoo somewhere in Zagreb, and try to preach to the tigers. And no, that's a waste of time. Based on their current body, they're not interested. They'll be more interested in eating you than hearing you. So we try to approach those living entities that can benefit from hearing us and don't want to eat us. We were discussing recently, Jagannath Sutra and I, that there are still places on this planet where human beings practice cannibalism. So it's not just some far-fetched concept here. And even those who don't normally practice cannibalism under certain circumstances, like the war that's going on now in Ukraine and elsewhere on the planet, there are other wars going on. People find themselves in a situation where they have nothing to eat, and they either eat another human being who has died, or they kill a human being and eat it. So this thing goes on. It's not some far-fetched idea. So we try to share Krishna consciousness with those who are happy to hear from us, who don't want to eat us. This is due to their relationship to the Supreme. For the Supreme Lord, by his plenary portion as Paramatma, is present in everyone's heart. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. So we're not only seeing that there's an individual soul in the ant's body, in the elephant's body, in the tree, in the human being. We see that the super soul, Paramatma, Krishna's expansion, is there also, witnessing everything that we do. Not just everything that we do, but even everything that we think. Once in Vrindavan, 1976, just before, 76 or 77, 76 I think it was, because I was there for that was the second year of the opening of the Krishna Balaram Mandir in Vrindavan. I was just there earlier this year, early April, for the 50th anniversary of the opening of Krishna Balaram Mandir. Anyway, in the temple at the time, some devotees, not to go too deeply into it, were doing things that were not approved. Things that one should not do in a temple of Krishna. So the news got to Prabhupada. So one day Prabhupada was giving class, and he said, and you can look at the deities here, you see these two fingers when Krishna is holding the flute? You can see, Krishna has these two fingers up. He says, these two fingers can see what you're thinking. And therefore we have a saying in ISKCON, maybe you haven't heard, but you can fool all of the people some of the time. You can fool some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool Krishna even one time. So don't try. So whatever we're doing, we should always be conscious that Krishna can see what we're thinking. Before we even put the thoughts into action, Krishna already knows. So that's one of the hallmarks that we're making progress in Krishna consciousness, that we always try to act in such a way that's pleasing to Guru and Krishna. Because if we don't, the person that we're affecting negatively the most is ourselves. If we engage in activity that we know is not approved, then we are actually hurting ourselves more than anyone else. So always be conscious. Krishna is there as Paramatma, witnessing everything. Such an understanding of the Supreme is real knowledge. As far as the bodies are concerned, in different castes or different species of life, the Lord is equally kind to everyone because he treats every living being as a friend, yet maintains himself as Paramatma, regardless of the circumstances of the living entities. So that's the analogy of the two birds on a tree. One bird is trying to enjoy by eating the fruit. Sometimes the fruit is bitter, sometimes it's sweet, meaning happiness or distress. And then there's the witnessing bird, Paramatma, is just watching. Watching, and also, as we learned from the 13th chapter, upadrasta anamantasya. He's giving sanction, he's watching what we're doing, but we can't actually do anything without his approval, without his sanction. Not necessarily you would say approval, because there are things that Krishna doesn't want us to do, but because we want to do it so much, he says, okay, go ahead. And Prabhupada gives the example in his own life that when he was a young boy, the family had one of the newest gadgets, an electric fan. You plug it in and it spins. So he wanted to touch it, and his father was saying, no, don't touch. It'll hurt you. But he insisted. So the father, very intelligently, unplugged the fan and said, okay, now you can touch it, because it had slowed down enough that it wouldn't hurt him. But it still hit him. So he understood, no, we don't do this. So sometimes the parent or the Supreme Parent, Krishna, will allow us to do something even though it's against our best interest, but we really want to do it. We insist on doing so. Krishna said, okay, so that's Krishna, the overseer, upadrashta, anamantasya. He also gives permission to do things. And then when it happens, inevitably we say, well, if there's a God, why do you allow me to do whatever that hurt me? That's because you really wanted to. Krishna's fulfilling all desire. And also Krishna, as he obviously knows everything, he knows that you can't ultimately hurt. It's the body that's being hurt, not the soul. The Lord as Paramatma is present both in the outcast and in the Brahmana, although the body of a Brahmana and that of an outcast are not the same. The bodies are material productions of different modes of material nature, but the soul and the super soul within the body are of the same spiritual quality. So what is that spiritual quality? It's saying here that we are of the same spiritual quality as the super soul. We learn that there are three outstanding qualities of the soul: Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So Sat means, what does Sat mean?
Eternal.
Eternal. And just the opposite, everything here in this material world is Asat, temporary. And then Chit means knowledge. And everything here is Achit. It's ignorance. We're generally almost always in ignorance. We're always wondering, what is he thinking or she thinking about me? What is the government going to do next that I'm not going to like? What is the weather like? Always ignorant. And we have to be educated or try to find out what it is we would like to know, but we don't know. And then the third quality is Ananda. Ananda means bliss. And that's what we're really after. We really want to be blissful. That's actually our birthright, to be blissful at every moment. And that's why this material world, we don't fit. Because no matter how hard we try, we cannot be blissful at every moment. We can hardly ever find just a little moment of bliss, what we call bliss, and that's not really bliss. Because inevitably, that which we try to use to make us happy is actually something not really desirable. Like last night we were discussing, some people turn to intoxication. But in the middle of the word intoxication is the word toxic, which means poisonous. So how are you going to find ananda by taking something poisonous? It's just incompatible. So this is how we spend our life in the material world. We're chasing after, we want to be happy, but we're chasing after the mirage of happiness. That if I get this substance, or if I get this job, or if I have a relationship with that person who's also miserable just like me, how are you going to, if you put two miserable people together, how are you going to find happiness? And people are always blown away by that, because they try their best to be happy with another miserable materially contaminated soul, and it doesn't work out and they're shocked. But we shouldn't be. Because the soul in the material nature has 4 defects that we should always remember. Imperfect senses, tendency to fall into illusion, tendency to make mistakes, and a tendency to cheat. So as soon as you realize you're dealing with another conditioned soul, which is everybody out there, practically 99.9% of the population is completely covered by the modes of nature, then you can't be shocked when they make mistakes, when they try to cheat you, when they're in total illusion, something you can see clearly. You can tell that this person is a cheater, but somebody else is in such illusion that they think, no, he's a great guy. I would support him. Let him be president. So we can't be surprised if we're actually alert, which we should be. Krishna consciousness means being alert. I always remind devotees, look at Lord Jagannath. See those big eyes? Always alert. Unblinking, always alert. So devotees should be like that, always alert. Prabhupada would be so upset when devotees allowed themselves to be cheated, especially in the terms of construction. He was constructing so many temples in India, and the devotees, primarily in America, were collecting so much money with such hard work to send to India to build these projects. So Prabhupada was so upset when devotees would allow these clever Indian so-called engineers and construction workers to cheat them. So we should always be alert not to be cheated. But we should also be alert not to cheat. We have a tendency to look out, not so practice it, looking inward. So whatever we find distasteful about others, we should look first of all to see if we're not guilty of the same activity, the same mentality. Okay, let's continue with that. The similarity in the quality of the soul and the supersoul, however, does not make them equal in quantity. For the individual soul is present only in that particular body, whereas the Paramatma is present in each and every body. A Krishna conscious person has full knowledge of this, and therefore he is truly learned and has equal vision. That's a nice phrase for us to always remember. Equal vision. There was some devotees who were releasing music under that name, right? Equal Vision Records. So the similar characteristics of the soul and supersoul are that they are both conscious, eternal, and blissful. But the difference is that the individual soul is conscious within the limited jurisdiction of the body, whereas the supersoul is conscious of all bodies. The supersoul is present in all bodies without distinction. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So in general, even persons who are covered by the material energy, goodness, passion, and ignorance, they like this idea of superconsciousness. So there was a time in America when we would distribute a lot of books, especially to college students. People were a little bit aware. And they said, what is it about? Oh, it's about superconsciousness. Wouldn't you like to be superconscious? Everybody wants to be superconscious. But the role of the supreme superconscious person is already taken. If we please that superconscious person by our activity, then actually we can be made practically superconscious. Not like Krishna, but so many examples are there in our line. Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he would be sitting down in Calcutta, and then he would say, just see that rascal. Just see what he's doing. His followers would wonder who he saw. He was talking about somebody in Vrindavan who was doing something that they shouldn't be doing. He's in Calcutta. If you've been to India, you know it's a quite big difference. It's like practically the southernmost border, of comparing the from Montenegro to Pula, or even greater, but at least for mental, you can understand. And I know personally because I've driven the entire coast of Croatia from Montenegro all the way up to Pula and beyond. So sometimes the devotees can be made super conscious by Krishna as well. The devotee is not trying to be super conscious, but Krishna can reveal when we're on the platform of pure devotion, Krishna can reveal things that are supernatural, super normal. Chitatmana prasantasya paramatma samavita sutosha sukadukeshu tata manopamani. Krishna says in the 6th chapter that for one who's controlled the mind, the super soul is already reached. This is how we come in contact with the super soul. We have to control our minds. In other words, don't act on whatever comes into the mind. Think about it. And the mind has to be purified by this process of Bhakti Yoga, Krishna consciousness. And when we do that, when we learn to control our minds, then we can actually hear the super soul. The super soul is actually speaking to everybody, telling everyone, every individual soul, exactly what to do at every moment. And that's why to this day, scientists are baffled by how certain species of animals, in certain species, the animal parents take the time to educate their offspring, how to hunt and what to eat, like that. But there are many species that never receive that parental training. Think of like an octopus. The mama octopus gives birth to sometimes hundreds of little babies, and she will stay with them until they become a little bit mature, and then she dies. And then they each go off on their own. How do they know what to eat and how to avoid predators and all? They've never been trained. Super soul. Super soul is telling every living entity what to do at every moment. Now, in the animals, we call that instinct. They have no real definition of that. They just come up with this word instinct. It's a super soul at work. But in the human form of life, we should know exactly every moment what to do and what not to do. This is the difference between a devotee or someone who is divinely inspired and a demon. Krishna speaks about that in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Pravritim cha nivritim cha jana navidur asura. Asocham napichacharo asatyam teshu vidyate. This is the beginning of the distinction between devotee and non-devotee or demoniac. The demoniac, Krishna says, pravritim cha nivritim cha. They don't know what to do and what not to do. So they just do whatever they want. So anybody who has that mentality of just doing whatever I want is a demon, by Krishna's definition. A devotee, a demigod, a godly person, always wants to know, be told what to do and what not to do. Pravritim cha nivritim jana na vidurasura. They don't know, so there are asuras. The socham, they're not clean. And we've all heard the term, cleanliness is next to godliness. So that's extremely important, to keep one's surroundings clean, what to speak of the temple clean, if there's a temple, to keep one's clothing clean, one's body clean, and internal cleanliness. So external cleanliness is achieved by taking bath, washing your clothes regularly. Internal cleanliness, this is where the Bhakti Yoga comes in, by taking to the Bhakti Yoga process, especially the chanting of the holy names of Krishna, which is a recommended process for internal cleanliness, self-realization in this age. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam, kalo nasteva, 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 gataranyata. If we want to be self-realized, we want to be God-realized, then we have to take to this chanting process seriously. In the beginning, one is chanting offensively, not paying attention. Not just not paying attention, but doing other things while chanting. That's offensive. It's like if I'm having a conversation with someone, I keep looking around and engaging others, and it's offensive. You don't feel, if somebody is talking to you, want them to talk to you. And especially women, guys, we talk, we look around. But women, if you notice, when two women talk to each other, they look each other in the eye and they really focus. I noticed that as a child. My mother had this circle of female friends. She was a teacher. And when they would get together, it was just like serious conversation, eye to eye, nose to nose. They really focus. Guys are a little more relaxed about it. They can, whittle around and glance at the phone, and we don't take it seriously. But if you're two women having a conversation, you better pay attention. Focus. So it should be like that when we're chanting. Focus on Krishna. We're talking to Krishna. We're talking to Radha. We should focus. So in the beginning, we don't focus. We're inattentive. We willingly distract ourselves. As I've been traveling, I've been talking about this concept of japa terrorist. When you chant japa, it's nice to chant amongst devotees. Some gurus insist that their shishyas, their disciples, should get together in the temple and sit down and chant their rounds, all 16 if possible. It's not always possible to do that, but it's nice to chant. But quite often when you chant with other devotees, you run into what I call japa terrorist. Somebody who chants a few beads and then they want to talk to you about something. Then a few more beads and then whatever pops in their head they want to share with you. That's a japa terrorist. So two things. Try to avoid japa terrorists and try not to be a japa terrorist. Seriously. Try your best not to terrorize other devotees' japa when they're chanting. It's a serious time, especially early in the morning is the best time. Again, not always possible. Not everybody can finish their rounds early in the morning. And Prabhupada discussed that. He said, especially for grihastas, householders, it's sometimes not possible, especially when you have young children. So he said, but everybody eats 3 times a day, right? Dorchak, ruchak, and what do you call supper? Vechera, right. So before you eat your dorcha, you chant 4 rounds. Everybody can do that, at least 4 rounds before you eat breakfast. You should get up early enough, in other words, to chant at least 4 rounds before you take breakfast. Then even if you have to work, if you have to go to the office, whatever, you're going to stop and take lunch. Ruchak. So before ruchak, chant another 4 rounds. Now you have half your rounds done, because 16 rounds is the minimum recommended. So by the end of lunch, you should have half your rounds done. And then if you work late or if you come home to wherever you live, you can chant another 4 rounds before you take supper. Now you have three-quarters of your rounds done. And before you take rest, this is proper, recommended, not me. Before you take rest, you can always squeeze in those last 4 rounds. So there's no excuse for not chanting 16 rounds. As I've traveled over the years, many devotees ask, that this is so difficult. But this was also asked of Srila Prabhupada. One time, one temple president said to Srila Prabhupada, Prabhupada, I get so busy sometimes, I can't finish my rounds. Prabhupada said, okay, so finish the next day. Whatever you haven't finished today, you carry over to the next day and finish. But Prabhupada, sometimes I'm so busy, I can't even chant my rounds the next. Prabhupada stopped him. He said, no, you find time to eat and sleep. You have to find time to chant your rounds. No excuses. So we don't take it seriously. This is the problem. We don't take it seriously. But the process of Bhakti Yoga is quite simple. Follow the regular principles, chant your 16 rounds every day. As far as possible, try to distribute Krishna consciousness to others. It's a very simple process. We complicate it by not being serious, by being inattentive, by distracting ourselves nowadays with the, you're chanting, but you're, don't do that. If we just give those 16 rounds full attention every day to Krishna, we're dealing with Krishna. So we can't cheat him, like we said. You can't fool Krishna even one time. He knows exactly what you're up to. So if we give, understanding that, if we just concentrate and give this time for 16 rounds, 2 hours, sometimes a little longer, it may take 2.5 hours. Give that time to Krishna every day, willingly, lovingly, then our trajectory just takes off. We'll see the difference. Guaranteed. And we should see how, as this verse states, Vidyavinaya Sampane Brahmani Kavihastini Sunichaiva Supaketa Pandita Samadarshana. If we want to be on the level of pundits, those who know what to do and what not to do, then we should come to this level where we see with equal vision. In other words, we don't get caught up in the political ups and downs of the day. This political party, that political party, this isn't, that isn't. That's not to say that we are fooled to think that they're all equal, but we know that the practitioners on the spiritual platform are all equal. Whether or not you agree with this person's political viewpoint or not, you're dealing with another spirit soul and the Paramatma next to that soul in that heart. So it's just like Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita. He knew that his opponents, they're spiritual beings like him, and he didn't want to fight. Devotees by nature soft-hearted. But Krishna wanted him to fight. So we're very fortunate. Krishna's not asking us, at least I don't think he's asked anyone who's here in this room, to kill our cousin brothers or our grandfather, our guru. He's not asking us to do that. He's just asking, give me 16 rounds seriously every day. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Offer what you eat before you eat it. That's another important thing. When you think of it, there was a battle about to start. Krishna is explaining to Arjuna how to get out of his moroseness, how to become serious about fighting. Yet he took the time to say, Yagya Shishtar Sinakshanta Mujante Sarvakilpachai Bunjate Te Tagam Papam Yepachanta Makarana. So it's important. Everything Krishna said in the Bhagavad Gita is important, all 700 verses. So he said there that the devotees of the Lord are relieved from any sinful action because they offer what they eat and sacrifice before they eat it. Those who eat just for the satisfaction of the tongue verily eat only sin. So offering is very important. In the beginning, we do it mechanically. All right, set up a little altar and whatever. But as we mature in our practice of Bhakti Yoga, any offering that we make should be done with some love behind it. And that's where Guru comes in. We may not be able to muster enough love for Krishna, but those who are sent to guide us to the ultimate goal of Krishna consciousness, at least for them we can do something practical, tangible, that we can get some feedback on. And that's why so many devotees learn to cook to satisfy Srila Prabhupada, who had a very particular taste. So you couldn't just throw something together and give it to Prabhupada. No, that wouldn't work. He would give you right away feedback. Even as making chapatis. How many here have tried to make chapatis? Ever? All right, it seems like a pretty simple thing. But what we call a chapati, what Prabhupada calls a chapati, may not be the same thing. There's that famous interaction in Harikesh. Harikesh was making chapatis. You roll out the chapatis, you put it on the griddle, and then you put it on the flame so it pops up. But by the time he got to Prabhupada, it would flatten out. Prabhupada would say, no, chapati means hot, and it has to be puffed up. So he learned to satisfy Prabhupada by running back and forth. Another hot chapati would puff up like that. To the untrained eye, may say that this person is mean. He's making this man run back and forth just a big back. No, but that's how we're trained. That Bhakti Yoga means the art of loving devotional service. There has to be love, there has to be devotion, and there has to be seva, there has to be service. So we have to be trained to do that. Because our natural consciousness, when we're conditioned, is we want others to run around and satisfy us. We want people to run around and satisfy us. If we go to a restaurant and people don't serve nicely, we get very upset. I was telling the devotees the other night, a couple of nights ago, that in my family, my mother was from a family of 8. She had an older brother who dropped out of medical school and went into real estate and became a millionaire many times over. My mother passed away at 87, but he's still alive. He's like 95 now. Lives on a huge estate near Orlando, Florida. So he was the joke of the family because, when he became wealthy, he became very puffed up. And he would deliberately go to a restaurant and order a drink just to throw his weight around. He would order a drink, take one sip and slam it down and say, "This drink stinks. Make another one." Just to show that he's a big guy with money, So that's the material mentality. We always want others to run around and try to satisfy us. So when we come to Bhakti Yoga, it takes some time to be trained how to run around to satisfy Krishna. And for that, we need Guru because, we're not necessarily on the platform where the deity is going to say something. We need to be trained. Another example, in New Dwarka, Los Angeles, Prabhupada came once. And in all temples, generally, there's a bowl of charanamrita, the bathing water from bathing the deities. They add some yogurt, something sweet, and then it's distributed as charanamrita. And Prabhupada's routine every day would be to come in the temple, and I was there. Prabhupada would come in the temple, pay his obeisance. There were 3 altars. First, Gaudi Thai, Prabhupada would pull down the butts, as old as he was at the time. He came in 65, he was 70 years old, so we're talking 75. 10 years later, he's 80 years old. Full dandavas in front of Gaudi Thai, and then full dandavas in front of Rukmini Dwarkadish, and full dandavas in front of Jagannath Baladev Subhadra, and then he would turn and go to the charanamrita bowl. One devotee would charanamrita, and then wash his hand and give a towel, a full routine like that. So one morning he did that. The person who made the charanamrita put salt instead of sugar. So Prabhupada said, "Who has done this?" And they told him, one Mataji, "Tell her she should never make charanamrita again." Again, it seems heavy. But he was making a point. When you're doing something to please someone, you have to concentrate. You have to concentrate. I remember when I first joined in 73, we would help cutting up, vegetables to make sabji. And the first thing they told you is, don't space out. Be very careful that each vegetable had to be cut to a certain size. And don't cut your finger. We don't want any blood in Krishna's sabji. So any kind of seva, if you really want to please the person that you're doing it for, you have to concentrate. Full concentration. Not spacing out trying to remember Krishna's pastime and you cut your finger. Anything that we're doing, and it applies to everything, deity worship or book distribution, or even chanting. Everything has to be done in full concentration. So again, thank you very much for your kind attention. I'm very happy to be back in Zagreb, at least for 1 week. I'm leaving on Thursday for Barcelona. But if you have any questions that you would like to ask about what I said or any questions about the process of Bhakti Yoga, I'll try my best to answer.
You mentioned how devotees are jealous on Krishna's food. And gopis also sometimes criticize, for example, they criticize Brahma, who gave the eyes leave and then they bring the cancer, Krishna, etc. And sometimes it's very, envy doesn't exist in spiritual world, we know that. And I know why. But sometimes it's very tiny line between jealousy and envy. How you can distinct.
When you're talking about the gopis, you're talking about spiritual perfected beings.
Yes.
So it's not that there's no emotion in the spiritual world, but all emotions are perfect.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I know all feelings what we get.
And just like you mentioned about criticizing, they're criticizing Lord Brahman. Very nice verse. It says, Atati yad bhavan ani kananam, chuti yugayate tam apasitam, kutila kuntalam, shimukamte, jara udiksitam pakshmakrisham. So they're saying, Atati yad bhavan ani kananam. Every morning when you go to the forest, they're talking about Krishna and Balaram. A moment that we don't see you becomes like a yuga. Then finally, at the end of the day, we see you coming back with your beautiful locks of hair encircling your beautiful face. But this foolish creator, Lord Brahma, has created these eyelids that again, just for a fraction of a second, we don't see you when we blink. How about a foolish guy is that to give us blinking eyes? Better the eyes should be like Jagannath, completely open. So the emotions that the gopis feel and express towards the flute or towards Krishna sometimes, they even chastise Krishna. This is all perfect. It's on the platform of spiritual perfection, and it produces intense ananda, bliss. There's no, even though we say they're feeling the pain of separation, there's no pain, it's all ananda, it's all blissful. Whereas on the material level, when we're criticizing somebody or we're jealous of somebody, envious, that is bad for us and bad for everybody. Okay? Something else? Don't be shy. Like I said, anything that I said, if you have a question or if you have some questions in general about the process of Krishna consciousness, Bhakti Yoga.
I will speak on
I'll translate.
Rekao si da Bhakti je odnos između ovoga Bhakti i
Krishna.
I Bhagavana.
You said that Bhakti means relationship between Bhagavan and
Bhakta.
devotee. Yeah, Bhakti. Yeah.
And koliko su tu uključeni Bhakti međusobno? Da li znači
Are you in that relationship also involved devotees between you and Krishna?
međusobno?
Yeah. Are this relationship between you and Bhagavan, are they also included in relationship with other devotees?
Yes. You cannot
with each other.
You cannot serve Krishna, you cannot relate to Krishna without relating to Krishna's Tadiya. Tadiyanam Samarchana. There's that verse where Shiva speaking to his wife. That of all types of worship, the worship of Achyuta, Krishna, is the highest. But higher than that is the worship of Krishna's Tadiya, which literally means Krishna's paraphernalia, but the devotees are counted as Krishna's paraphernalia. And Krishna himself says, tell him what I'm saying. You understand?
Razumiješ, znači najviše odnos je kad obožavaš Krishnu, međutim iznad tog odnosa je kad obožavaš njega i Bhakti, odnosno paraphernalia.
And Krishna himself always says, one who says that he's my devotee is not my devotee. But one who says that he's the devotee of my devotee, he's my devotee.
Znači, razumiješ, jednostavno.
See? So yes, bhakti, the process of bhakti is the transaction between bhakta and Bhagavan, but it includes Bhagavan's tadiya, Bhagavan's paraphernalia, which includes the devotees.
Znači, taj odnos je ne samo odnos sa Bhagavanom, nego i sa svim Bhaktima.
I ima još jedna stvar koja je ključna za nas. Da shvatimo da Krishna on uvijek želi stvariti svoje Bhakti. I stavlja ih u određene situacije.
Da. He said that Krishna always glorifies his devotees and he's putting them purposely in some situation. That's the reason. It's very important to understand.
Yeah. When we hear Krishna Lila, we're not hearing just about Krishna. We're hearing about the gopis, the cowherd boys, the birds, the Yamuna. They're all devotees of Krishna. So we hear Krishna Lila means involving all of Krishna's devotees. So we worship Araja Bhagavan Brajesha Tanayo Tadhama Brindavana. Braja Isha Tanayo. It's a way of addressing Krishna. Braja Isha means Nanda Maharaj. He's the king or controller in Braja. And Tanayo means son. So Araja Bhagavan Krishna. Braja Isha Tanayo, because so many people may say they're Bhagavan. But we're talking about that Bhagavan who's Braja Isha Tanayo, the son of the king of Vrindavan. Araja Bhagavan Braja Isha Tanayo. Tad Dhamma Vrindavana. So his Dhamma, his place, both Goloka and Gokula, are worshipable. So when we worship Krishna, that transaction between Bhakta and Bhagavan includes his Dham, his Bhaktas, devotees, all of it that is included. We have to worship his Dham also, not just Krishna. We worship Vrindavan, the land of Vrindavan. Why do we want to go there? Because Krishna placed his lotus feet there. Why do we want to worship the, well, like we say, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamine. What does that mean? From a respectful basis, this is Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who's buried dear to Lord Krishna, having taken shelter at his lotus feet. So if we worship those who are sheltered under the lotus feet of Krishna, then we also become sheltered by the lotus feet of Krishna, not directly. Understand? One time Srila Prabhupada said to one devotee, you belong to me and I belong to Krishna, therefore you belong to Krishna. So our engagement with Krishna, our practice of bhakti, has to go through devotees, not directly. We don't go to Krishna directly. And therefore we have that phrase, servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. And that's also, there's a verse for everything. Vajan manam madharanam madakar kaitubhare madpartaniya yadanugra esha esha Britta Britta Parisarya Kabritta Britta 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 Intimang Smara Lokanata. So the devotee is praying, oh my dear Lokanath, oh the enemy of Mara. The highest gift that you can give me and the perfection of my life is if you think of me as a servant of the servant of the servant of the servant of your servant. So that's where that servant of the servant comes from that verse. And Prabhupada informed us that we should think like that. Servant of the servant of the servant, not impudently trying to be a devotee of Krishna directly. So the devotee always is mindful of relationship with other devotees, but particularly one's guru. And obviously your guru has to be a devotee. You don't take a non-devotee as a guru. So we are mindful of our relationship with all devotees, but particularly our relationship with guru. And that pleases Krishna. Anything else? Okay, thank you very much. Grantaraj Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna.
Don't need this anymore. Okay. Can I put that away?
This is a nice sounding drum. Or you can say it again.
Good. Nice space, nice eating, nice devotion, everything.
Subotom za pozivamo